Hi guys, it's Datrina from the Alluring Bead Boutique, and as promised, I'm going to show you guys a solution to a problem I was having in a previous video. So if you remember, when I was showing you guys the second method for creating a right angle or cubic right angle weave, where we build our beadwork one cube at a time, you'll remember I ran into a problem where my colors of my beads didn't line up correctly. And now I've figured out how to resolve that problem. Because basically, the technique I was showing you guys, I was confusing myself with the technique you use to build your beadwork straight up and down, like, for example, if you were making a rope, where we build upon this cube, and grow our beadwork that way. Now I'm going to show you guys how we'll build the length and solve that problem one cube at a time when I'm going to be working on a flat piece of beadwork, such as these squares. So I'm working up some project tutorials, and I wanted to create these base squares using cubic right angle weave. So in one of the cubes, or one of the squares, I created the piece of right angle weave for my base, which was 4 tall by 4 wide, and then I built my cubes up. And that solved the problem of running into an issue where you might accidentally put the wrong color beads in. So let me show you what I figured out. So if I want to make this into not a rope, but like a flat piece of beadwork, such as that square, and I've got my base cube made here, and you'll notice I'm using these little, I don't know why I'm not focusing too well here, but I'm using these little 11-0 beads as my side beads, and I'm using some 8-0 beads as my top and bottom beads. So I've reinforced the top of this cube, and I've sewn back down through a set of my side beads and back across the bottom. So now what I'm going to do is pick up 3 of my 8-0 beads, and I'm going to create that next unit bottom beads, just like this. I don't know why I'm not getting focused. Okay, so now that I have those beads on, I can move into this next bead here on the side and begin building my wall. So I'm going to go ahead and pick up 2 side beads and a top bead, because this wall is going to share these 2 side beads over here. So I'm going to come back down these 2 beads on that shared wall, then come back through that bead on the base, that 8-0. Then I can move into my next 8-0 on the bottom of this new little cube I'm working on. I'll pick up these 2 side beads and a top bead, because I'm working from the bottom. So now I'm going to come down through these 2 beads, which now become the shared beads for my next wall. And then come back through the base. So there I have this side and this side of my cube. I'm sharing this third side over here from my previous cube. So now I just need to add my last wall. So I'll come through the next bead on my base, and I've already got the 2 sets of side beads here, so I just need to sew up the ones here and add that top bead. I'll come down the shared beads on this side, come back across the base, then come up. So I guess actually there are 3 methods for doing cubic right angle weave. And come across the top, and then you still have to remember to sew these 4 beads together along the top. So there's 2, 3, 4, and 5 to close the beadwork. So once I get in that bead, let me flip my work around so I can actually get in my bead. So there's 5. So now I've secured the top 4 beads together, and I want to get into position to add 2 more cubes. So I'm going to come across this bead, And then I'm going to come down the side beads on this side. And then once you've come down these beads on the side, we're just going to sew into the next bead on the base, which will be this bead right here. Okay, so now we have sewn into position to do that again. So I'm coming out of this bottom bead. I'm going to pick up 3 of my 8-ohs. And I'm going to come back through that bead from the opposite side once again. Get my little base beads in position first. Then I'm going to sew into one on the side and start again. So let's do this one more time. So I'm exiting from this bead on the side of our new base unit. I've picked up my 2 side beads and a top bead. I'm going to come down through these shared beads. Let me flip this over. I'm going to come back through that same bead on the base. Then I am going to move into the next bead on the base. And if you have trouble with tension, make sure you just reinforce that wall before you move on. All right, so now I'm going to pick up my 2 side beads and my top bead again. I am exiting this bead to the left. I'm going to come down through the 2 shared beads to the right of my base. I'm going to come back through the bead on the base. Pull everything nice and snug. I'm going to roll my work around, and then I'm going to come into my last bead on the base. And as you can see, I already have both sets of my side beads, so I just need a top bead. So I'll sew up those 2 beads there. Pick up my top bead, sew down the 2 that are over here on this side. And back through that base again. Then I'm going to sew up my side beads once again, and I'll come up here and sew my 4 top beads together. Now I'll come back through this one last bead, sew down the side, back into the bead at the bottom, and pick up my next 3 beads and create my last cube. So I'm going to go ahead and create this last cube, and then I'll come back and I'll show you guys how to position on the side so we can build the beadwork width this way. So now I have formed my last cube, and I've stitched my beads together at the top. So now I want to grow my next row over here to the left. So first I'm going to come down the beads on the side, right next to where my working thread is exiting that top bead. Then I'm going to come down through this side bead, or the bottom bead here on my base, to the left. And I'm in position to create a base unit here using this 8/0 C bead. Maybe you can see it better from the bottom. I'm using this bead here to create my next unit. So let me pick up my 3 8/0s, and I'm going to come back through that bead from the other side. And now I can reinforce this unit and begin building my walls here on the side. Actually, but now this cube already has, this next cube's going to have this shared wall here. So I'm exiting from this bead to the left. I picked up my 2 side beads and my top bead. I will come down the 2 side beads of this shared wall right here, plus the bead on the base. And now I have my second wall in place. So I'm running out of thread here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add some thread. And I'll come back and finish this up. So now I'm ready to add this next wall. I was exiting my next base bead. I picked up my 2 side beads and my top bead. I am coming down through the 2 shared beads plus the bead on the base. And now I have my second wall in place. I figured out what was going on with my camera. I had set it on autofocus and it was really just not focusing that great. So now I need to come into my next base bead of those ones we added at the beginning to begin this row. And now you can see we have our 3 top beads in place on the top. 1, 2, 3. We just need to add that last top bead. So we'll come up the beads here on the other side. Make sure you get in both beads. And then position that, pick up our last top bead and position it here between the 2 sets of side beads. Come back through the base bead. Sew up through the 2 on the side and sew your 4 top beads together. So here we'll go sewing through our top 4. Now, once we get these beads sewn together and we get ready to work on that next cube, we're not going to need to pick up 3 beads this time because we're already going to have 2 of the beads on the bottom in place. Now I'll show you what I'm talking about. As I come through this last top bead, right there. So now my working thread is positioned here, and I've sewn all the way through those. If I flip this over and you look at the bottom of this beadwork, you can see that I already have 2 beads in place for the next cube. I have this one and this one. So we're going to sew on down through the side beads, just like we've been doing, to get to the bottom. Then we're going to come through one of those shared beads here. And we're going to come through that second shared bead right here. Now we only need to pick up 2 of our 8-ohs. We're exiting from this bead here to the right. We're going to come down through the other shared bead from top to bottom and come back through that same bead that we started from right there. And now we have another little right angle weave unit down here that we can use to build this next cube. But now we already have 2 walls in place. So we have this back wall in here, and we have this wall here that are going to be shared. So what we need to do is come up into this bead right here on the side. And we'll create our third wall right here. So we're going to pick up the 2 side beads and the top bead. We're going to come back down through these 2 shared beads plus that bead on the base right there. Get my needle out from the loop. And so that when I pull, now I have this bead, this bead, this bead, and this bead, and I just need the top one here on the outer edge. So we'll come through that bead on the edge at the bottom, sew up through the 2 beads that constitute this side, pick up the top bead, sew down through the beads that make up the other side. Sew through the base. Then we'll just sew up and connect the 4 beads. And we'll repeat that same process twice more to finish off this row. And that's how all of our additional rows are going to work as well. So I'll show you that one more time. This will work the same on this second row, our third row, and our fourth row. The first cube of each of those rows, we will need to make 3 sides to our cube. We'll have one shared wall. For the remainder of each row, we will only have to make 2 sides of each cube. So here I have reinforced my top, and I'm going to come back down that, or through that next bead on the top. I'm going to come back down to the bottom of my beadwork by coming down the side beads. I'm going to come through the first shared bead of my next unit. And then I'm going to sew across through the second shared bead of that unit. Right there. I'm going to go ahead and pick up these 2 8/0s for the bottom of this cube. I'm going to come down through that first shared bead again. And then over through the second one. So up through this bead here on this side, so you can build your first wall. So now I'm ready to build my third wall of this unit because I have this one in place on the right side, and I have this one here on the back already in place. Pick up your 2 side beads and then your top bead. Come down through those shared side beads plus the bead on the base. So over through the next base bead. Up through these beads on the side. Add your last top bead. Come back across the base, sew up the side beads. And simply connect your 4 beads here at the top and repeat that for the last cube on the row. And then follow the steps again to begin your next row that we just did. All right, so basically that would be how you can build your cubic right angle weave to form a basically a more flat shape, and makes it a lot easier to keep track with which beads to pick up when than it did in the other video. So that's the second way that you can do your cubic right angle weave method cube by cube. So in essence, this is the third different method that we've covered for creating cubic right angle weave beadwork. All right, guys. So like I said earlier, I am working on some tutorials for making these sumptuous squares is what I'm calling them. And if you would like to participate in this project, you could go ahead and make yourself up 3 or 4 of these great little squares using cubic right angle weave. And then meet me back over and I'll show you guys how to do the embellishments in separate videos. All right, so that's it. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you've learned a lot during the right angle weave portion of Bead Weaving 101 on the AlluringBeadBoutique.com, as well as over here on my YouTube channel. And if you haven't signed up for my memberships, you might want to go ahead and check that out. I've got several great project videos already ready to upload. One has already been published over there. The second one publishes tomorrow. And I have a third one already worked up and edited that I'm getting ready to upload. So there's plenty of content coming over there that you can subscribe to my memberships, pay a small monthly fee, and have access to all of that stuff. If you don't want to do that and you prefer patterns, you can check out the patterns over on the AlluringBeadBoutique.com shop. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Have a great day.